In the golden age of Hollywood, some true masterpieces were born. Every director, producer, and actor poured their heart and soul into making movies that would stand the test of time. That's why we often refer to it as Hollywood's golden era. But here's something you might not know. There are plenty of fantastic films from that time that didn't get the recognition they truly deserved. Let's dive into 6 of these hidden gems. The Scarlet Empress, 1934. Josef von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich teamed up for 7 unforgettable films. Each one is unique, yet you can always spot Sternberg's signature sophisticated and sometimes bizarre visual style. But here's the thing. The Scarlet Empress often gets overlooked when compared to their more famous collaborations. This film offers a haunting glimpse into the life of Catherine the Great and might just be Sternberg's most lavish filmmaking endeavor. Even though it's a biopic, the movie doesn't stick strictly to historical facts. Instead, it creates this almost surreal world where every shot is meticulously composed and stunningly beautiful, thanks to Sternberg's legendary cinematography. It's grotesque, over the top, and absolutely fascinating. You can't help but wonder how such a stylized film got made back in the day when the studio system was all about plot-driven stories. Libeled Lady, 1936. Imagine seeing the Thin Man's dynamic duo, Myrna Loy and William Powell, alongside MGM stars Jean Harlow and Spencer Tracy. That's exactly what you get in Libeled Lady, an underrated screwball comedy from the 1930s. The story is delightfully crazy. Newspaperman Haggerty, played by Tracy, and his fiancée Gladys, Harlow, try to dodge a $5 million fine by setting up a wild scheme. This involves Gladys marrying Bill Chandler Powell and Bill seducing Loy's character. Naturally, things spiral out of control from there. The plot sounds even crazier and funnier than it is, and watching these 4 stars together is an absolute treat. There are tons of twists and gags, and the high production value ensures it looks as good as it is funny. While the entire cast shines, Jean Harlow steals the show. Her comedic genius and charisma are at their peak, making it heartbreaking to think she passed away less than a year later. Thankfully, we can still enjoy her films, and Libeled Lady might just be her best one. Captain's Courageous, 1937. Captain's Courageous is as epic as it is moving. Directed by Victor Fleming, this adaptation of Rudyard Kipling's novel not only honors the source material, but also amplifies its emotional impact with a stellar MGM cast. Freddie Bartholomew plays the spoiled son of a wealthy, absent father, portrayed by Melvyn Douglas. After falling overboard from a ship, Freddie is rescued by a fishing boat crew that includes Mickey Rooney, Lionel Barrymore, and Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy's performance as Manuel, the Portuguese fisherman, was so outstanding it earned him his first Oscar. Tracy perfectly balances lightheartedness, nobility, and a down-to-earth attitude, making Freddie's transformation from a selfish boy to a selfless young man truly captivating. This film is a heartwarming family adventure that touches on universal themes. It's a timeless lesson in altruism and an entertaining adventure flick, which is why it still resonates so well nearly 80 years later. Make Way for Tomorrow, 1937. Leo McCarey, known for classics like The Awful Truth and Duck Soup, also ventured into drama with Make Way for Tomorrow, a critically acclaimed but little-known masterpiece. Released in 1937, the film offers a surprisingly realistic look at a family struggling to care for their elderly parents. When the couple loses their home, they have to move in with their adult children, each of whom has their own set of problems. It's a sad, lifelike situation that feels just as relevant today as it was back then. Instead of painting the parents as pure victims and the children as entirely selfish, McCarey presents a balanced view. The script shows the children genuinely trying to help, even though their own selfish streaks sometimes get in the way. The performances by the wonderful character actors make the old couple's plight all the more heartbreaking. Make Way for Tomorrow is a tearjerker that's both moving and subtly funny, standing shoulder to shoulder with masterpieces like Tokyo Story when it comes to portraying aging. The Prisoner of Zenda, 1937. The Prisoner of Zenda from 1937 is a romantic adventure that stands up to Errol Flynn's best Warner Brothers swashbucklers. Directed by David O. Selznick, this film features Ronald Colman in a dual role as the soon-to-be king and his look-alike cousin who must save the day when the villainous brother, played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr., tries to stop his coronation. Alongside Colman, we have David Niven and C. Aubrey Smith as the king's loyal companions. But the real standout is Douglas Fairbanks Jr. in what might be the best role of his career, Rupert of Hentzau, Michael's ruthless ally. Madeleine Carroll and Mary Astor deliver stellar performances as well, with Carroll as the enchanting Princess Flavia and Astor as Antoinette, Michael's devoted lover who's forced into betrayal. The Prisoner of Zenda offers something for everyone and was so successful upon its release that MGM remade it 15 years later. But as the saying goes, nothing beats the original. Holiday, 1938. Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant starred together in 4 films, 2 of which are true treasures of American filmmaking, Bringing Up Baby and The Philadelphia Story. But there's a lesser-known gem among them, Holiday. Directed by George Cukor, a frequent collaborator and friend of Hepburn's, Holiday features Grant as Johnny Case, a successful young man engaged to millionaire heiress Julia Seton, Doris Nolan. Johnny wants to quit his job and take a few years off to enjoy life, a wish that's unpopular with his fiancée and her father. Meanwhile, Julia's alcoholic brother Ned, Lew Ayres, and her open-minded sister Linda Hepburn are all for it. Johnny finds himself torn between security and his dreams, and as he navigates his love life, he starts falling for his sister-in-law. Holiday is a charming blend of romance, comedy, and drama. It's a heartfelt tale about making tough choices, choosing independence and love over wealth and social expectations. The film's themes are still relevant today, and watching Hepburn and Grant shine together is truly delightful. Remember the Night, 1940. 4 years before the iconic film noir classic Double Indemnity hit theaters, legendary stars Barbara Stanwyck and Fred MacMurray teamed up for the very first time in this often overlooked Christmas tale of redemption. Barbara Stanwyck plays Lee Leander, who, just before Christmas, gets arrested for shoplifting in New York City. With her trial postponed, Assistant District Attorney John Sargent, portrayed by Fred MacMurray, feels sorry for her and decides to escort Lee to his home in Indiana to spend the holidays with his family. As romance blossoms between them, Lee's upcoming trial casts a shadow over their fleeting happiness. With a wonderfully nostalgic script by Preston Sturges that blends comedy, drama, and romance without getting overly sentimental, Remember the Night radiates warmth and style under director Mitchell Leisen's guidance. If Sturges wanted to showcase his signature cynical streak, Leisen kept it toned down, transforming the film into an incredibly touching fable with a surprisingly realistic ending. Waterloo Bridge, 1940. Imagine Scarlett O'Hara herself, Vivien Leigh, saying that Waterloo Bridge is her favorite among all her films, including the legendary Civil War epic. This World War I-era romance was shot right after her unforgettable turn as the tempestuous Southern belle, but its reputation took a hit from unfair comparisons. Waterloo Bridge is a remake of the 1931 pre-code film of the same name. It's a tragic love story about a ballerina who becomes a prostitute due to the hardships of war and her British officer fiancé, who seems to come back from the dead. The film also stars MGM superstar Robert Taylor in one of the finest roles of his career. Leigh and Taylor create one of the most beautiful on-screen couples Hollywood has ever paired. They deliver poignant performances under Mervyn LeRoy's sensitive direction. One of the standout moments is when the couple dances to Auld Lang Syne in a candlelight-lit club right before Taylor's bittersweet farewell to active duty in France. It doesn't get more romantic than that. Manhunt, 1941. Before Double Indemnity became a film noir staple, Fritz Lang brought us Manhunt, a wartime drama that blends his usual dark visual style with an entertaining script. This time, Lang adapts Geoffrey Household's 1939 novel, Rogue Male. The film stars Walter Pidgeon as a British hunter who, after being caught trying to assassinate Hitler, finds himself hunted by German agents. Along the way, he meets a young prostitute, played by Joan Bennett, who tries to help him escape. Manhunt offers a relevant account of the dangers posed by the Nazi regime just as the U.S. was on the brink of entering World War II. Unlike typical propaganda films, the writing is smart and avoids cliches. The Nazis are effectively characterized thanks to George Sanders' impressive portrayal of a Gestapo major and John Carradine's chilling turn as the hunter's tracker. However, the spotlight truly shines on Pidgeon and Bennett. Pidgeon delivers his usual skilled performance, effortlessly moving from lighter scenes to emotionally intense ones. Bennett, who made some of her best films with Lang, is simply charming to watch. With her Cockney accent and underlying vulnerability, it's hard not to get invested in her character's journey. Overall, Manhunt is an engaging and unique cinematic experience. It might have remained lesser known if it hadn't suffered from repetitive comparisons to Lang's other stellar works. This Gun for Hire, 1942. Veronica Lake became famous in the 1940s as a film noir femme fatale, but ironically, among all her films, only the comedy Sullivan's Travels is widely remembered today. Alan Ladd, another case of mistaken genre identification, is often associated with the lone gunman from George Stevens' famed Western Shane. However, during his heyday, Ladd was actually a celebrated leading man in the dark film genre. To see both Lake and Ladd in their natural environment of shadows and crime, you should check out their on-screen partnership. The fascinating duo, paired up due to their similar diminutive stature, made 7 films together, with This Gun for Hire arguably being the best. In the film, Alan Ladd plays hitman Philip Raven, who is paid off with marked bills and ends up on the run from the police. During his journey, he meets Ellen Graham, portrayed by Veronica Lake, the girlfriend of his pursuing cop, played by Robert Preston. Ellen may or may not be hiding a secret herself. The plot is full of twists and turns in classic noir fashion, but isn't as convoluted as a Raymond Chandler novel. Director Frank Tuttle's attempt at a stylized crime drama hits all the right notes, but it's the legendary main couple that truly makes the film great. The More the Merrier, 1943. While not as famous as It Happened One Night or Bringing Up Baby, The More the Merrier offers just as delightful and hilarious a ride as the most acclaimed screwball comedies. Set in Washington, D.C. during the housing shortage of World War II, Connie Milligan, played by Jean Arthur, is forced to sublet her apartment to Sergeant Joe Carter, portrayed by Joel McCrea, and retired eccentric Benjamin Dingle, played by Charles Coburn. Benjamin starts playing Cupid for the young couple. Jean Arthur, the most brilliant yet sadly underrated comedian of her time, shines here at the top of her game. She delivers the script's funny lines with impeccable timing and charm. One of the most emblematic scenes is when Connie explains her perfectly scheduled morning rituals to an amused Benjamin, only to have the old man completely disrupt her over-organized lifestyle. George Stevens' film also presents the kind of romance that old movie lovers adore. Joel McCrea makes the perfect strong and handsome straight man to Jean Arthur's adorable comedic flair. The subtly sexy porch scene between the couple is a masterclass depicting sexual attraction without relying on vulgar dialogue or imagery. Furthermore, the always excellent character actor Charles Coburn won his only Oscar for the comedy. He had previously shared the screen with Arthur in the equally notable farce The Devil and Miss Jones, and together they elevate their funny chemistry to the next level in this film. The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1945. Oscar Wilde's eerie novel has been adapted to the screen dozens of times, but finding a more impactful version than Albert Lewin's 1945 production is still a challenge. Even with modern technology, we haven't found a more fitting look for this gloomy tale than the stunning black-and-white visuals crafted by MGM cinematographer Harry Stradling. The well-known story revolves around a young man who sells his soul for eternal youth, causing his portrait to age and decay instead of his body. The film is told with elegance and style, building up to its famous and horrifying climax. The startling Technicolor segments of the picture, viewed from Gray's perspective, aren't just there to please the audience, as was common in black and white films when color technology was emerging, but they actually enhance the movie's impact as the story progresses. Donna Reed, Angela Lansbury, Peter Lawford, and George Sanders star alongside the relatively unknown actor Herb Hatfield as Dorian Gray. While all performances are competent, Albert Lewin deserves credit for creating an atmosphere as obscure as Wilde's original book. This is what ultimately makes the movie an unsung classic. Humoresque, 1946. Despite winning an Oscar for 1945's Mildred Pierce, Joan Crawford's acting abilities have often been undervalued, especially when compared to her contemporary screen rival, Bette Davis. But if you take a closer look at her career, you'll find gems like John Negulesco's Humoresque, where Crawford proves she's a brilliant performer when given the right roles. In the 1946 drama, Crawford plays a problematic socialite who becomes a patron to a young violinist, portrayed by Hollywood method acting pioneer John Garfield. Their contrasting performing styles create electrifying on-screen chemistry. As Garfield's career rises, Crawford's character begins to decline into drinking and neurosis, leading to increased fights as they both deny their feelings for each other. Humoresque is a first-rate melodrama blessed with a magnificent soundtrack by composer Franz Waxman. It also features a tragically poetic beach ending that inspired Madonna's The Power of Goodbye music video, Nightmare Alley, 1947. By 1947, matinee idol Tyrone Power had already proven himself a star. But what he really wanted was to show the world, and especially his studio, that he was more than just a pretty face. He wanted to showcase his acting chops. To do that, Power took on a daring project based on William Lindsay Gresham's novel, Nightmare Alley. In this film, he goes against type, playing Stanton Carlyle, a supposed mentalist whose deceitful ways and overreaching ambition lead to his ultimate downfall. With a hefty budget and a star-studded cast, including Joan Blondell, Nightmare Alley stands out as a rare gem in film noir. Unlike the typical B pictures that define the movement, Edmund Goulding's movie is both impeccably produced and brilliantly acted. But don't be fooled, it's as noirish as they come. You can really see the influence of German expressionism in the lighting and set design, which adds to the haunting and decadent vibe of the film. And as the story unfolds, it's clear that Stanton's evil fate is set in stone. Initially misunderstood when it first hit theaters, Nightmare Alley slowly built a reputation as an outstanding example of film noir. It really makes you wonder how much more Tyrone Power could have achieved if 20th Century Fox had let him showcase his acting skills more often. Key Largo, 1948. Of their four-movie partnership, the iconic on-screen and off-screen couple Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall have two undisputed classics to their name: Howard Hawks' To Have and Have Not, and The Big Sleep. But sadly, their 1948 film noir, Key Largo, hasn't enjoyed the same level of fame. In Key Largo, Major Frank McCloud, played by Bogart, decides to visit the family of a deceased old friend. To his surprise, he finds the widow, portrayed by Bacall, and her father, played by Lionel Barrymore, being held hostage by a gang led by Johnny Rocco, a neurotic and wild man portrayed by Edward G. Robinson. As a tropical storm approaches, McCloud does his best to keep Rocco from going on a killing spree. Directed by the masterful John Huston, Key Largo delivers plain old good storytelling with some excellent performances from everyone involved. Noir fans will especially appreciate Claire Trevor, who won an Academy Award for her role as Robinson's alcoholic lover. Her character decides to help the suffering captives after getting tired of being mistreated. If you're a fan of Bogey and Bacall, or just appreciate classic filmmaking, Key Largo is a must-watch. It's an intense and thrilling ride that will keep you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. Letter from an Unknown Woman, 1948. Director Max Ophüls, best remembered for his European masterpieces like The Earrings of Madame de and Lola Montez, brings us a gripping tale of lost love in Letter from an Unknown Woman. Set in 1900s Vienna, this film is arguably his best American work. The story follows a young girl, played by Joan Fontaine, who falls in love with a philandering pianist portrayed by Louis Jourdan. Told through flashbacks, the narrative begins as the leading man is about to flee a duel, but stops when he receives a letter from an apparent stranger. Fontaine shines in this role, delivering a marvelous performance as Lisa Burndle. It's perhaps even superior to her Oscar-winning role in Hitchcock's Suspicion. Louis Jordan brings charm as the rascal Stefan Brand, but it's really Fontaine's picture. Her only competition for applause is Ophuls' elegant directing and the exquisite work by the art department. While undeniably romantic, the film also soberly explores the fleeting nature of passion. Lisa's delusional love contrasts sharply with Stefan's harsh reality. Letter from an Unknown Woman is a one-of-a-kind film, beautifully shot by a master of period love tales. It certainly deserves a broader audience. Caged, 1950. Caged is a women's prison drama with heavy film noir cinematography that features Eleanor Parker, famous for The Sound of Music, in an Oscar-nominated performance. She plays Marie Allen, a young girl who loses her innocence in the terrifying environment of a 1950s penitentiary. Marie's transformation is the highlight of the film. She evolves from a trusting adolescent into a hardened, scornful woman in a completely believable way, something not many of her peers could pull off. Parker was so immersed in her role that she actually shaved her head for a shocking scene where Marie is punished for a supposed transgression. This was a brave and rare move in the studio system era, where actresses were typically required to maintain their physical beauty. The Lusty Men, 1952. The Lusty Men might not be widely known, and its ghastly title might keep it from being better recognized, but it's quite an outstanding film about rodeo life in the 1950s. Directed by Nicholas Ray, the film is character-driven and revolves around an ex-rider played by Robert Mitchum. He befriends a cowhand and his wife, portrayed by Arthur Kennedy and Susan Hayward, and convinces the man he can turn him into a rodeo sensation. What starts as a great deal for both parties soon leads to conflict when Hayward and Mitchum inevitably become attracted to each other, and Kennedy realizes he actually enjoys rodeo life more than he thought, despite having promised his reluctant wife it would only be a temporary job. The Lusty Men is as realistic as it is entertaining, featuring some fantastic footage of rodeo riding and beautiful Western American scenery. While it might be a bit hard to find, it's completely worth the effort for its authentic portrayal and emotional depth. Love Me or Leave Me, 1955. Set in the 1920s, Chicago, Love Me or Leave Me tells the story of a kept woman who rises to the top as a jazz singer thanks to her gangster husband's influence. Think lots of drinking and provocative clothing, definitely not your ordinary Doris Day picture. Alongside James Cagney, Doris Day takes on the challenge of playing Ruth Etting in a somewhat fictionalized account of her career and turbulent private life. This role is a major departure from her romantic comedy repertoire. Day probably delivers her most impressive performance ever, bringing a natural and instinctive acting style that gives truth to the part. She masterfully avoids turning Ruth into a caricature. James Cagney, in his last gangster portrayal on screen, is powerful and domineering as Marty the Gimp Snyder, a brutal, jealous man whose intensity is truly frightening. The main couple, Ruth and Marty, bring pure tension and passion to the screen. Plus, the film features some great musical numbers, like Day's renditions of the title song and 10 Cents a Dance. Director Charles Vidor goes for a darker atmosphere, much like his film noir classic Gilda, and it's a choice that definitely pays off. Love Me or Leave Me stands out as a compelling blend of music, drama, and noir elements. The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952. Although The Bad and the Beautiful won 5 Oscars in 1953, Vincente Minnelli's drama about the movie industry doesn't get the same recognition as his celebrated musicals. This dark tale explores the unglamorous aspects of old Hollywood life, focusing on a ruthless producer named Jonathan Shields, played by Kirk Douglas. Through flashbacks, 3 of his former acquaintances, a struggling actress portrayed by Lana Turner, a novelist played by Dick Powell, and a director depicted by Barry Sullivan, share how Shields supposedly ruined their lives. The film is filled with great performances from the leads and supporting cast, including Gloria Graham, who won an Academy Award for her role as Powell's vivacious wife, and Gilbert Roland as a fictional Latin lover. The Bad and the Beautiful may not reach the same heights as Sunset Boulevard when it comes to movies about movies, but it's still great entertainment. It bravely exposes a rarely seen side of Tinseltown during the studio era, making it a standout piece worth watching. They Live by Night, 1948. They Live by Night is a compelling film noir, directed by Nicholas Ray, featuring the talented Farley Granger and Kathy O'Donnell in standout roles. By 1948, both actors were well established, but this film gave them a platform to showcase their depth and versatility beyond their typical roles. The story revolves around the passionate and tumultuous romance between Joe Grondell, Farley Granger, and Shelley Gear, Kathy O'Donnell. Joe is a drifter with a troubled past, while Shelley is determined to escape her life of petty crime and build a future together. Their journey is fraught with obstacles, including relentless law enforcement and the harsh realities of their environment, which ultimately test the strength of their love and commitment. They Live by Night stands out for its raw portrayal of young love and rebellion, set against the gritty backdrop of post-war America. Nicholas Ray's direction brings poetic realism to the narrative, blending stylized visuals with emotional authenticity. The film's innovative use of flashbacks and non-linear storytelling was ahead of its time, influencing future generations of filmmakers. Despite its critical acclaim, They Live by Night didn't achieve significant commercial success upon its release. It was overshadowed by other noir films of the era, but over the years, it has been re-evaluated and praised for its heartfelt performances and poignant storytelling. Today, it's celebrated as a quintessential example of character-driven noir, highlighting the struggles and aspirations of its protagonists in a way that resonates deeply with modern audiences. The Big Clock, 1948. The Big Clock is a masterfully crafted suspense thriller directed by John Farrow, featuring towering performances by Ray Milland and Osa Kinane. While not as widely recognized as some of its contemporaries, this film offers a gripping narrative and sharp character studies that firmly place it among the underrated classics of Hollywood's golden era. The plot centers on George Strager, Ray Milland, the editor of a major magazine who becomes embroiled in a complex murder investigation. When his secretary, Eve Perkins, Osa Kinane, is found dead, George finds himself the prime suspect. As he delves deeper into the mystery, George uncovers a web of deceit, corporate espionage, and personal vendettas that threaten to destroy his career and life. The Big Clock excels in its tight screenplay and taut direction, maintaining suspense from start to finish. Ray Milland delivers a nuanced performance as the beleaguered editor, conveying both his determination to clear his name and the mounting pressure he faces. Osa Kinane's portrayal of Eve adds layers of intrigue, making her a pivotal and enigmatic figure in the story. John Farrow's direction ensures that every scene is meticulously crafted with a keen eye for detail and pacing that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats. The film's exploration of power dynamics within the corporate world and the fragility of reputation adds a psychological depth that sets it apart from typical thrillers of time. Upon its release, The Big Clock received positive reviews for its intelligent storytelling and strong performances. However, it didn't achieve the enduring fame of other noir classics, making it a hidden treasure for film enthusiasts. In recent years, critics and audiences have revisited the film, appreciating its sophisticated narrative and the stellar chemistry between Milland and Kinane. The Big Clock is now recognized as a standout example of mid-century suspense cinema, deserving of a prominent place in any classic film collection. The Narrow Margin, 1952. The Narrow Margin is a standout film noir directed by Richard Fleischer that often flies under the radar despite its masterful execution and gripping narrative. Released in 1952, this suspense thriller stars Charles McGraw and Arlene Dahl in captivating performances that elevate the film beyond its genre conventions. The story centers around Mike Gannon, Charles McGraw, a tough and determined detective tasked with protecting a key witness, Edith Van Sloan, Arlene Dahl, during her journey to testify against a powerful mobster. As they navigate through the night on a train bound for a courtroom showdown, they find themselves relentlessly pursued by relentless gang members intent on eliminating the witness. What sets The Narrow Margin apart is its meticulous pacing and claustrophobic setting, primarily confined to the dark, confined spaces of a train. Richard Fleischer's direction builds intense suspense through tight framing and strategic use of shadows, enhancing the film's noir aesthetic. The chemistry between McGraw and Dahl is palpable, adding emotional depth to the high-stakes tension. Despite receiving positive reviews for its taut storytelling and atmospheric cinematography, The Narrow Margin didn't achieve the widespread acclaim it deserved upon release. However, over the years, it has garnered appreciation from film noir enthusiasts and critics alike for its craftsmanship and enduring suspense. Today, it's celebrated as a quintessential example of the genre, showcasing how effective storytelling and strong performances can create a timeless thriller. Thank you for joining us on this journey through some of Hollywood's most underrated classics. These films remind us of cinema's incredible power to captivate and inspire across generations. Which of these gems will you watch first? Let us know in the comments.